I like that challenge. What have we been feeding on? Greet you all in the precious name of Jesus as we look to see what God has laid on my heart. I've been working on that. I've kind of pushed off my time for ministry for several weeks already, and I suppose the ministry's glad I'm back. But I've been thinking about that, and of course we've been in Romania and we preached over there too, but it was good to see the brethren over there and to fellowship with them. I'm not so sure that I enjoy the traveling back and forth. It's not near like it used to be, but we made it, and the Lord blessed us with safety, and we're thankful for that. What's been on my mind is that which has been a blessing to me as I seen the work over there and the things that are happening and so forth. And also that which is happening in my own life. I like to confess this morning that just going over and seeing some of the work that needs to be done and so forth, that it renewed my vision for the work of the kingdom of God. The older you get and your body becomes more feeble times, I've experienced that already. I'm not as limber, and I seen a guy jumping off the truck the other day, and I thought, oh my goodness, I would never do that anymore. I'd lined up on the floor, flat on my face, but he jumped off and it was all right. But you know, our bodies deteriorate, and we sometimes do the same thing with our spiritual lives. Our energies wax worse and worse. And so we have a tendency to sometimes sit back and say, well, maybe I can slow down a little bit. I believe that's possibly all right for physical, but spiritually, I'm not sure about that. And I've been reminded of that as I come back from the work there. And there's other places. Just had a call from a leader this morning, and you know, the work's still there. And all over the world, Bangladesh, all over. A granddaughter that's in Greece, and the work's there. What are we doing? Are we doing our best, or are we beginning to slack off because something becomes more normal or so on? We believe that Jesus taught by word and example that followers of Jesus will, in humility, serve one another. We need to keep that vision in mind because Jesus taught it. We remind ourselves every communion about the example of Jesus of serving one another. In John 13:5, where the master washed the disciples' feet. But Peter objected. He didn't think that Jesus was doing it the right way. You've got it all wrong. I should wash your feet. You're the master. And I believe that is honorable to think that way. But Jesus was teaching another lesson, and that's that there are no categories. The master was washing the servants' feet. And we likewise need to not categorize, but we need to take care of the needs that come and present themselves before us. I've entitled, in Romans 12:9, it says, let love be without dissimulation or without hypocrisy or choosing, putting in categories. You need help and you don't. Or I need to slow down and you can take on the work. I think we need to have the mentality that God has given us the ability, if He is giving us health and strength, to do what we can. Now, I'd like to at the same time say that when we can't do the things we used to, and that's prevalent, we can see that in our natural bodies, we don't stop. We just change the different things that we're doing. We find other areas where we can be helpful and be a blessing and a help. I remember very vividly the 5 years that we were over in Romania that without any changes, it always happened that someone from our congregation sent us our birthday gifts, or birthday cards, on how it was they were faithful in doing that. And it was a blessing to us. Just a card came through the mail, and many times it was on time. I wondered how that all worked out, but they planned ahead to make sure that he got there on time. It wasn't always, but fairly close to it. But there's things that we can do. We seek different areas of service that can be a benefit. We don't slack off and quit. That's what I've entitled my message this morning, having a I can't mentality in relation to Christian service. I'd like to turn to Psalm for a scripture reading this morning, Psalm 73, verse 26. Psalm 73, verse 26. And there it says, "My flesh and my heart faileth, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever." We become weaker and things happen that we can't operate and do like we used to. But let's recognize that with God, He will give us other areas and other categories that we can go into and meet the needs. Having a I can't mentality, I thought of other nicer descriptive words we sometimes would like to use. Like, for instance, it's not my gift if I'm asked to do something. Or, count me out. I'm old, I can't do it anymore. Or I'm not qualified. A nice way of saying, oh, I can't. Others can do it better than I. That's familiar. I've thought that many times in my own mind and recognize it that it's not really what God wants. I don't sense it's my calling. Many times, a lot of these, reasons or excuses have to do with my own self, how I view something, not in how God views us and what He has in mind for us. And last of all, I thought of one that I've made that statement already, and I'm sorry for it. My nerves won't be able to take it. Yeah. I know myself, and if I'm called to do that, my nerves are going to take over. God knows what He's doing, and He gives us the strength. And we'll look at some of those words or verses yet. Returning from Romania with a renewed vision, I think we have done our part, and we want to slow down. God gave me a conviction on that it was a blessing to my own spiritual life. Seeing the workload that the brethren have over in Suceava, even before the refugee crisis, I'd like to give you a glimpse. And that's some of the things that showed to me how weak and lazy I am in my vision toward Christian service. I'm just going to give a little rundown of some of the things that they do in Suceava. First of all, they have a growing church to maintain, the brethren do, and is growing. Thankful for that. We have native brethren in there, and they're doing their part and continuing on. And we notice that under Jericho Road Ministries, which what a large part of this is under, and also the distribution part, they give out food and clothing parcels. Sometimes you need to analyze, do these people really need it, or are they just depending upon it? Is there really needs there? So that takes time and effort and wisdom. They have milk for many mouths. They buy milk and give it out to poor people, especially children, so that they have nourishment to grow on and so forth. They have 6 remedial schools for overlooked gypsy children, and they need teachers for each one of those. Goes on continuously except for the summertime. But it's an important aspect because the gypsies are kind of a downclass people. There's many gypsies that would like to uplift their image, and they're doing all they can to make it better. I appreciate that. They're looked down upon. And so in schools, in the public schools, they're kind of the outcast. If you don't learn, they don't spend extra time so that you do learn. And so there are many that are older and don't know how to count money, can't even spell or read. So the church there has places where those people can come in and learn. And it's being very beneficial. That takes time. Training seminars for the homeschooling, which is a new thing that's coming in. They call it school away from home. So it doesn't conflict so much with the government schools. But it's something that they need to accept because the EU has accepted it. And so they need to there too. And there's many Christians that don't want their children to go to the public schools because there's smoking, drugs, everything that we have here that's going on there, phones. And the training isn't the best sometimes because of the lack of discipline and so forth. So many Christians want to teach their own children, and it's an avenue they can do. And that's growing by leaps and bounds, almost faster than they can take care of. It's from Christian Christian Life Education's materials, and they maintain and stock that curriculum. Their warehouse is filled to the top, and it's very organized, and they're full. They can't hardly work anymore. They need a warehouse, and they're thinking of trying to make that sometime in the near future so that they can organize it. And actually, I said to the top. They can't even, the state won't let them go clear to the top because they have low ceilings. They're building their warehouse is one of the buildings that they had during communist times. And so they put a ceiling in, and the ceiling is low, and so they have regulations that you can't go all the way to the top because you have combustible material. It's paper, and so it can burn. And so they need a warehouse that's larger so they can store more of their curriculum, growing by leaps and bounds. They do translation work, courses in literature, and translating it into Romanian to send out and to have reading material that's good. They do that. They also send out about 83,000 Seed of Truth magazines each month. The church comes together one Wednesday evening a month to package and prepare to send them out. It's reading material that's good and that will be upbuilding and will speak to hearts about the Lord Jesus Christ. They do building and remodeling projects for the staff and places for the volunteers to be in when they come over to help. They also started an outreach church 3 hours away in Vaslui area, with a minister and a number of brethren moving down. So that takes away from their staff there at Suceava. Maintaining correspondence courses, answering and sending out new ones, also on the agenda. And then the refugee crisis comes. What do you do then? For 6 months, a tent at Suret, a Ukraine border, or at Suret, the city of Suret, at the Ukraine border, they had a tent there giving counsel and direction and assistance for those who were fleeing to Romania and out of Ukraine. The church has, for a number of years, had 2 youth from Ukraine, I would say probably 5-6 years already, in the church. They were in the church because they left Ukraine before they were 18, because when they became 18, they needed to enter the military service. And so they left. But that has proved to be a real blessing, because now they were able to go up there into that tent and were able to direct the people because they had the language. They were Ukrainian, and they could tell them about Suceava, they could tell them about the church, they could tell them about where they could receive food and lodging, and that was a blessing. But it did bring more work to the church there in Suceava. The church has Anabaptist Ukrainians now worshiping in the Suceava church, also helping out with the work. It provides, we can provide work for them by the building projects and other areas of service. We have one there that's a computer technician, and he's from Ukraine, and he was able to speak English also, and so it helps a little bit there in the office, and he's done a lot to help with upgrading the network there. A blessing that has turned out to be, and they worship there at the church. They're not members, but they worship there. One thing that's interesting there in the church, like they've always had, when we were over there, we've had 2 languages. The pulpit has 2 speakers. We have the minister, whether he speaks in English or Romanian, the other person translate to the other language. So we have English and Romania being taught or being given in on every service. But then we have probably anywhere from, I was trying to think how many it was, but I'd say there's probably 12 or more Ukrainians now in the service. So they have, through technology, they have someone that knows the English or Romanian sitting in the tech room or in the room where the computer is, and he has a transmitter, and he's translating it into Ukrainian, and the Ukrainians have earphones, and so then transmitters, and so we have 3 languages being heard each Sunday there at the Suceava church, which is amazing to me. So we can worship together even. It's not like it was in the day of Pentecost where everyone heard it in their own voice, but or in their own language, but these are hearing it in a different way in their own language, which is a blessing. They now started having a number of sprinter vans, larger vans, taking food, clothing, and prescription medicines into the country of Ukraine, even into the war zones. That's a blessing. As I think of that, it's dangerous. They take enough fuel so that they can return back into Romania without buying fuel, because it's hard to buy enough fuel in Ukraine to be able to do that. So they add special fuel tanks into the vans so that they can make a complete trip, even going over almost to the border of Russia and into the war zones, and giving out prescription drugs, insulin and the drugs that you don't get over the counter that are hard to get. We have a nurse there that's going along. We have people that are volunteering to go out and to do that, which is phenomenal. Only thing is, right now they buy these drugs in Romania, so they are current, they are up to date, they're acceptable in Ukraine for the use. It's costing approximately $60,000 a month for these medicines. God has provided so far, and we pray that He would continue to do that. When the war began, people were directing these from the tent. They were being directed down to Suceava so that they could have a place to stay and food to eat. ICAM was feeding there at the office approximately 300 people 2 times a day. Plus, they had a pantry where people could come and pick up food to take home and make. You would think that their plate is pretty full, or was at that time. How they did it, they passed through, picked up their plate, and went outside and so forth to eat it, because there was no place on the inside large enough to take care of these things. Presenting another problem, because now we have Ukrainian people coming out, and they have children, and it's important that the law says that they have to be educated. So now we have many more students for the Ebenezer Christian School. It's not able to accommodate more students. And so they have, on the first priority list is to build that school that I just mentioned to you when I was giving my report. Making a bigger school for more students, which will also mean needing more teachers. And many times the Sunday school classes in the school will probably have double kind, because you have to have someone that can teach in Ukrainian and some that can teach in Romanian. And of course they intertwine the English language for both classes. So it's work there. There's plenty to do. And you say, but you know, the thing that caused me to have this message this morning is I never once heard anyone say, can't do it. It's too much. We have too much going. We're stretched thin. They told us that. In fact, they were asking if we wouldn't stay to help. But we had callings too. So as I think of that, where are the resources coming from? God only knows. Our plates are full. We need to continue. I'm reminded of the statement going back many years ago when I heard this statement from Jeremiah Isaac that he made in Peter Dick's story that he presented when the Russian Mennonites first moved into Paraguay, Chaco after World War II, as refugees also. It was a place where Paraguay allowed them to go there because it was a place nobody wanted. And if you heard Peter Dick's story, I would like to hear it again, and I don't know where it's at, or I had a tape and I listened to it and it inspired me. But those people went there because they could go, they wanted freedom of religion, which the Soviets were not doing. They were causing them to flee because of that. And so they ended up in Paraguay, and there was a lot of famine. And when they did have a good growing season, there were times when They thought it was a cloud, and they were going to get rain, and then the cloud was grasshoppers, and it stripped the whole thing. Trees, fruits, gardens, everything, and they were without anything. Tough times. They had dry wells. They had sicknesses. But he encouraged himself and others with the words, Gott kann. God can in English. What did Jeremiah Isaac mean by that expression? God can. Could it be that God is omnipotent? He believed that God would make it all happen out. He's all powerful. He can take any situation and correct it. Could it mean that he has a divine plan for his children? In the book Jeremiah, in the Bible, Jeremiah 29:11, it says, For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. If we're his children, he has a plan. It might not always be exactly like we like it, but he has a plan. And if we follow after it, we're going to receive blessings. He has an expected end. He's the one that's in control. Or maybe he had in mind this statement here that God can, that nothing is impossible for God. He can settle anything that comes our way. We also are very familiar with the beginning, the creation. He created the universe by speaking it into existence. He made mankind to be ruler over it. That's still applicable for today. Are we taking care of the universe God made? Or are we careless? But nothing is impossible for God. And as I think of that, I think of the train ride, that 6-hour train ride going up to Suceava from Bucharest. And as I come home and I see the green, and last night we got some more rain again. August, the middle of August, and we have green lawns. Unusual in a sense. Terrific crops are coming. The gardens are just abundant. Fruit trees, plenty. And going up from Suceava, an hour or two north of Bucharest, I've seen corn I've never seen like before. Sticks with the leaves almost falling off, brown. Some were taking them off and baling them so that they could maybe get something out of it. No corn, I don't believe it there. Didn't even see any ears there, from what I could see at certain places. Sunflowers, nothing but sticks with little things, brown. The birds were getting those. Had to think of the hunger and the thirst physically that many will probably endure this next year. But God is in control of everything. Will he supply their need? I trust he will. Somehow, some way, maybe through us, maybe through those of his children who have plenty. Or are we going to do like the rich man, tear down and build bigger so that we can have it better ourselves? Or are we willing to share? Luke 1:37, in relation to the virgin birth of Christ, in the thought of nothing's impossible for God, the angel Gabriel said, For with God nothing shall be impossible. Nothing shall be impossible with God. May it be an encouragement to us. May we trust him and lean upon him, depend upon him. 1 Corinthians 10:13 says, God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that you are able. We can have that assurance that God is going to oversee it all and to give us grace where it's needed. The real secret of that statement of Jeremiah is that we can if we have Jesus Christ. We need him. Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. The all things there is pertaining to whether we have God on our side, whether we are leaning upon him. Reading through the Old Testament recently, and while I was over in Romania, the different kings, it's so amazing. As you read through there, you say, how can the children of Israel so quickly fall away? And as soon as they fall away, we notice that God brought what? He brought difficulties to Israel. The Syrians came, or the Moabites came and took over, carried away all that which was in Jerusalem and in the temple, took it away. And it was all to bring them back. It was a hardship, but it was to get them to think about God again. God's still doing that today, I believe. May we learn from those examples and teach ourselves. 2 Corinthians 9:8 says, and God is able to make all grace abound towards you, that ye, always having all sufficiency in all things, may abound into every good work. God is able to make all grace to abound. That's where the secret is. We need to have God. We need to look to him and let him give us the strength, the grace that we need. Do you trust God to give you the capability to do the things he calls you to? That's the challenge. Do we trust ourselves? Do I depend upon my own credentials to be able to accomplish something? Or do I ask the Lord to help me? To be my mouth. To be what I ought to do. To make decisions that are wise, that are upbuilding to the kingdom, that are helping those in need. In relation to this subject, I had to think, or I remembered, God's call to Moses in Exodus 3, verse 4. And I went over that again and just renewed it. Because it's so much like I have a tendency to be. We notice that God called Moses to deliver the Israelites out of Pharaoh's bondage. And he was doing it from a burning bush that never disintegrated. It kept on burning. And it got Moses' attention, and he went over, and God talked to him. I've often wondered, how would that be? He often talked to Moses. He says, remove your shoes. It's holy ground that you're on. It was holy because God was there. And Moses did that. Do we do that? Do we allow God to speak to us and recognize his holiness and his grace? But Moses, what was his response? He was saying, I can't. In chapter 3, verse 11, Moses said, who am I that I should go unto Pharaoh? Basically what he was saying, I'm not qualified to go speak to the king or the Pharaoh. I can't do it. I don't have the right words. How can I persuade a king? I'm just a sheep herder. How does that speak? Have you ever said that? In chapter 4:1, God continued to speak to him, and he said, they won't believe me. They won't believe what I say. I'm just a sheep herder. The people, first it was to the Pharaoh. Now the people won't believe me. They will go on and they'll say, who are you? You're just a shepherd. But God showed him his power. He said, take that stick that's in your hand and throw it on the ground. You know what happened. Came a snake. Moses went away from it. He was scared of the snake. But God said, pick it up by its tail. And so he did, and it became a stick. Showed a great miracle there. Not only that one, he showed him, said, put your hand in your bosom. And when he pulled it back out, it was leprous. Dreaded disease. And then the Lord said, put it back into your bosom, and it was made whole. Just simple little stories you've known for a long time, but it showed the power of God. And he also took some water out of the river and was told to pour it on the dry ground, and it became blood. God showed his power to Moses. And he was saying, people will believe you when they believe, or when they see the miracles that are going to be performed. I have the power to do that. But that wasn't convincing yet to Moses. He says, I'm not eloquent in verse 10. I'm slow of speech. I can't speak. Verse 11, the Lord said, who made man's mouth? Who maketh the dumb or the deaf or the blind? Have not I the Lord? We see here, God is telling him, I'm in control. I will take care of you if you trust me. I will meet your need. But he went even further. And he said, I will be with you. What a promise. God is going to be with him. We can have that same promise. He's said it over and over. You follow me, I will be with you. I will give you that which you need. I will strengthen you. And in the Old Testament, there were different times where God said, you just go out to battle. I'll fight the battle for you. There was one time, and I think I've mentioned it here already, where he said, I'm going to fight the battle. You just send the singers out front, and you sing. Sing a song of glory to your God. And the other people dispersed. They killed each other. They won the battle, not lifting a sword for the fight. God is in control. Do we trust him? I will be with you. And secondly, he said, more than that, your brother Aaron is coming to meet you, and he will be your helper. You won't be alone. You'll have someone to counsel with and to be a part of the team there. He will be your speaker. He can speak well. He trusts me, and I'm going to use his mouth, and I'm going to use you to lead the people out. And Moses then surrendered and gave up and said that he would do it. The I can't mentality can be overcome by letting the I be crucified and saying with Jesus, not my will, but thine. God will give sufficient grace for every task, for every need. He's promised us that. He will be with us. We can't see that God can unless we see that we can't. This kind of we can't mentality is dealing with the thought of having an humble spirit and completely surrendered to God. Our God is able. Is your God able to help you? When he calls you and gives you a calling and asks you to do something, can you depend upon him and just surrender and let him do the work through you? Shall we kneel in prayer? Dear Heavenly Father, as we come before you this morning, thank you for challenging us again, opening our vision to the needs around about us. You have called us to servanthood, and we want to be that. Not depending upon who we are or what condition we're in, but rather just surrendering to you. And you will give us the work that's feasible for our condition, for our ability, Lord. And secondly, you will be there to help us and maintain. Give us the grace to come to you. Do what Jesus did. Thy will be done. Help us, Lord, to praise and honor glory to your name. May this message be that which will help us gain a vision for your kingdom. And in these latter days of evil and corruption, we would stand out and be a benefit for the kingdom, for your honor and glory. That more might be saved in the latter days that haven't come. Lord, we just plead for grace to encourage and boldness like Paul had to go out and to share and meet people's needs. So many are going on. Lord, we pray that you, by your work in our lives, by keep us hallowed, give us a vision, renew it for us in Jesus' name.